Hey, YouTube, check this out. This, my friends, is the new Feelworld Lut11s. I've been waiting for something like this for so long now. Oh my God. And that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to walk you through this thing from start to finish. This is a fantastic piece of kit. I'm using it right now to transmit my video from the camera to the screen. 10-inch director's panel. I wish I had had one of these 3 years ago. Oh my God. Let's get into it. Okay, so it should be pretty obvious the number of advantages that you have when you've got a panel like this that can be controlled wirelessly. I mean, this thing has 2000 nits brightness. I can see exactly, my exposure, my light levels, you name it. I mean, this thing has it built in, and I can see all my camera settings fairly easily. We're out in bright sunlight today. Well, today it's been cloud sun, but yeah, so this thing, I don't know how if you'll be able to see this, but fantastic piece of kit. Can't recommend it highly enough. Let's jump in, we'll take a serious look at this thing, and then maybe you'll decide to add one of these to your kit. Okay, so we'll start out with something simple. I'm just on the other side of the truck. I've got the camera about 6 feet away from me, and I can see exactly what my camera settings are. This thing has 2000 nits of brightness. I can see all the camera settings, light, focus, you name it. And so there's two main ways to use this. I can use this handheld like this. I just took this little handle from another piece of kit that I have, plugged it into the bottom of this, and away we go. But it comes with a U-shaped bracket, and the only thing I found with the U-shaped bracket is that, so it allows the panel to tilt like this, but because the HDMI cables are going in and out of the bottom, you can only go so far before the cables get in the way. So I find it's a little easier to use either a ball head or some kind of a handle mount like this, and I can stuff this onto a 5/8 baby pin, and away I go. But so what you see is what you get. And so the way I'm transmitting, I've got the TP Mini. So transmitter's on the camera, receiver's here on the back of the panel, and the receiver fits into, the 970p Sony batteries. And so there's a fitting here, so the transmitter's actually being powered off of the panel itself. So it doesn't get any better than this. But let's do a bit of a range test here, and I'll just walk away. We'll see how far I can get, and before we lose the signal. Okay, so range test part 2. And the other thing I didn't mention about this thing is if you turn it, the screen will flip no matter which way you turn it. So, I mean, it's just so nice to use. But okay, so let's try for the range. Okay, so hopefully it's still picking up the audio. Okay. I don't know exactly how many feet away that I am, but maybe get a little blown out too because of the sun. I'll go right back here in the Okay, so I doubt you'll be able to see me, but we'll see. Hopefully this thing is still picking up okay. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shows that it's still recording, so let's hope for the best. Okay, so now we'll do a quick test and make sure that the reception was good from, I don't know how far away that was, maybe 100 feet, something like that. So let's check it out. Okay, so let's take a look at this bad boy and unbox it for you. This will be what I call a pseudo unboxing because I've already done it to save you time. You're welcome. So you get a metal bracket. I think it's aluminum. It's not very heavy, so I'm sure it's aluminum. You're going to get a pack of adapters. You're going to get the monitor itself. And yeah, you'll get a little user manual, which is written in pretty clear English. So some basic information for you. So we'll just put that aside. Get these guys out of the way. So there's your three main pieces right there. So you get a bracket, a box of adapters, and you get the panel itself. So let's just shove these two to the side for a second. And in here, okay, you've got an HDMI to a mini cable. I would have preferred micro myself. I don't have any use for mini, but you get it with the kit. You're going to get a couple of rubber grommets, and the rubber grommets just fit onto the bracket like so. Right, then you can take your little rubber thumb screws and tighten them to the monitor. Straightforward stuff. Then you get your power adapter, and this bad boy just clips on like this and snaps into place. And then, so now you can, you know, just take that out of the box, plug it in, and away you go. Straightforward. So let's move this out of the way. So now we can deal with the monitor itself. So on the top, you've got a power on button. You've got three customizable buttons. You've got a menu button that you can press and turn that's fairly responsive, like it's fairly tactile in my humble opinion. You also have a SD card slot here for LUTs, quarter 20 mounting point. On the other side, you've got an audio jack for your headphones so you can hear your audio. You've got a DC 8 volts. If you want to power your camera from here, you can. You also have another quarter 20, and then on the bottom, which is where the magic happens, this is your AC power inlet. So this is a DC in 12 volts. Then you got one output and two input HDMI ports. You've got a quarter 20. You also have SDI out and SDI in, and then you've got your tally, your VGA port for tally. And so tally is for basically, if you're working in a studio where you've got a number of people working together, you want to be able to tell everybody's working together. They need to know which camera you're switching from, and the tally system allows you to do that. But me being a YouTuber, I'm a one-man band, so it's not something I'll be taking advantage of. On the back of this monitor, very straightforward too. You know, you've got the L series batteries, so 2 ports here. You can have 2 batteries. You've got another mounting place for your transmitters. I've got a set of Shimbal transmitter receivers that I just got recently, so we'll test that out as well. And everything is fairly well laid out. Mostly plastic made, but it doesn't feel cheap, to be perfectly honest with you. At the price point, I think is really good value for the money. So with no further ado, let's plug this thing in, get it working. We'll show you what it can do. Okay guys, so after a little bit of playing around, I managed to get this thing powered up and working, no problem. And if I hit the menu button here, I can come down to input and I can switch to my overhead display. And so basically, to get the thing up and running, I just plugged in the AC power to the bottom left hand corner, and then I plugged the 2 HDMI cables in. And so now I've got this view and I've got my top down view, which is really cool. And you know, to trigger the menu system, the touch is the easiest way to do things. But you know, just from the top, if I scroll through here, so you can see I've got analysis, waveform, vector scope, histogram, focus assist, audio meters. I mean, you've got a lot of fine tuning here. So I just hit the button and the audio meters will be turned on. I can turn on zebras, I can check the field view, the false color, and then come to the top here. I've got under markers, there's crosshatch, safe areas, crosshair, cinema guides, and then under image, I've got scan mode, aspect ratio, anamorphic, mirror, zoom times, freeze, and pixel to pixel. And if I go to user options, there I've got the option to choose HDR, get into LUTs, display setup. So in this case here, you know, if I went back to the default, you'll see the display goes really blown out quite a bit. So just hit the button. There you can see the audio meters as well. But under the display mode, so I just knocked this down to about somewhere around 35, something like that. And you can see the display a lot better. So really cool. I mean, this is I wouldn't say this is a professional grade piece of equipment, but for YouTubers, for what I'm going to be using it for, ideally I was kind of looking for something that might allow me to replace this big, you know, kind of clunky 21-inch monitor that I've got down here under my main camera. And so this, so just to continue on here, yeah, so HDR, LUTs, display setup, and under display setup you can adjust the contrast, the saturation, hue, sharpness. You've also got a backlight mode that you can make adjustments to help it to make it so it's a little easier for you guys to see. I've darkened it up a little bit here. We'll brighten it up a little bit more. And then you can get into your color modes, and you've got Rec 709, DCI-P3, BT 2020, 5600 Kelvin, 6500 Kelvin, 9300, or you can hit a user button and make your own fine-tune adjustments, which is really cool. And then under system, you know, there's your scroll wheel, backlight or volume, shortcuts, and so you can program your function buttons, F1, F2, F3. You can customize this thing pretty much any way that you like it. You've got the tally system built into this, and the tally system is really through the VGA connection there. It's just so if you're working on a set with a whole bunch of people, they need to know if you're switching one camera to the other. I mean, I'm not in that. I'm a one-man band, so I don't really need that functionality, so I can just turn it off. And under input, I can switch my views. So I can see my straight ahead view, or I can switch back to my overhead view so that you guys can see what I'm doing. And then, you know, you can go into languages and you can pick the language you want. So, you know, just as a quick overview, I found this thing fairly easy to get up and running with. It has a little sticky cover here, so there's a protective cover on the panel itself, which I'm probably going to leave on as long as I can, just to, you know, protect the screen. But overall, getting started, pretty straightforward. And the menu system is not like my Ninja 5, which is, you know, unfortunately, the Ninja 5 menu system needs to be redone as far as I'm concerned. It's not very intuitive, but this one is pretty straightforward. I mean, everything down the side, you can switch with the button at the top here and just scroll down through your menus like so. So, you know, you want to set your focus assist colors, your audio meters, your zebras, check your field. So you can do it this way. I mean, it's a lot easier to just use the touch screen. And you can set crosshairs, you know, you got on here. Let's turn them on for you. And so that's 3x3, which is probably the most common that people are going to use. But you got 4x4, 5x3, 5x5, 6x4, and 6x6. You can change the colors of the crosshairs. You know, if you want them white or light blue, you know, so you can play with this thing till your heart's content. You know, you can set up safe areas in many different aspect ratios, so you can turn those on or off. You've got crosshairs, you can turn them on or off. So if I turn those on, there you can see the crosshair in the screen, and the red color is set there now. So I just hit this, I can get back into that menu fairly quickly. So I think the menu system is laid out fairly well. It's fairly intuitive to use. I mean, I picked it up in like 5 minutes, so not really anything too difficult. You know, then you've got cinema guides here. And again, you can change the color. So there's a ton of options that you have to fine tune this thing to the way that you want to work. And then under image again, scan mode, underscan, overscan, aspect ratio. So you can turn your aspect ratio, let's just play with that for a second. 16:9, it's turned on. Okay, so it just changes the view that you're going to get. And we'll just put it back to auto for now. Anamorphic, so if you're using a camera that's got an anamorphic lens, then, you know, you've got different lens types that you can switch here. I don't use anamorphic lens, so it's not really something I have to worry about at this point. You can set this to mirror on or off. You've got auto mirror, you've got horizontal mirror, vertical mirror, depending on the situation that you're in. Zoom times, you can turn those on or off. Freeze, if you want to freeze the screen. And I think that's for, you know, if you've taken a particular shot, you want to freeze that screen, and then you move your camera, you want to bring it back and match it up. You'd be able to do kind of like an overlay. And then pixel to pixel is the last thing here, and you can turn that on or off. So just a plethora of things that you can muck around with to dial this thing in and get it working the way that you like it. So just for a quick overview, there you have it. Okay guys, so let's talk for a second about use cases for the director's panel. And here's a really good one. Right now, I've got my TP Mini plugged in, so it's a wireless transmitter receiver. If you haven't seen my video on it, just check the channel. I'll put a link in the description for you. But I've got the TP Mini, so there's a L socket on the back of the director's panel, so it fits the L series batteries, the NP970, something like that. But anyways, got this hooked up on the back here, so now I've got wireless transmission from my FX30 to the director's panel. And how clutch is that? I mean, I've been doing a lot of car videos recently, and it would have been so nice to have this panel in the passenger seat so I can check the focus and exposure, you know, from my camera that was just on a tripod in behind me. So, you know, for that use case alone, or that reason alone, this thing is paying for itself almost immediately. Now, the main use case for me stems largely from the fact that this panel is so good. It's got a 20 nits brightness level, so it's as good or better than my Ninja 5. And what I wanted to do was, I had a Samsung panel, still have it, and typically I have the FX30 feeding into that so I can see myself, but that's mounted on a lowboy stand, and the lowboy stand has, you know, maybe a 16 to 18 inch footprint that I would like to eliminate if I can, to kind of streamline things, because my studio's a tad on the small side. And with the help of this panel, I've been able to do that. So I can run the cables straight down. So this thing has just been a godsend so far. And, you know, having the wireless connectivity, it really is something that you guys may want to look at depending on your use case situation, but I think I've given you two pretty good ones so far, and we're just kind of scratching the surface here. Okay, so let's take a look at another use case, or let's talk about another use case, and that is probably the most obvious one. Just taking this panel and stick it out with a little ball head, stick it on top of your camera. In my case, it's on top of an FX30. I've got a Dayview teleprompter mounted just in front of the lens. And honest to God, I had to turn the brightness on the panel down from its default, I think is 50%, so I've got it down to about 35%. I can see myself no problem here. You know, the more I play with this panel, the more I like it. The menu system is, I think, you know, I can't tell you how much I like the menu system. When you go from the Ninja 5 to this thing, it's just like press the button, everything comes up on the left-hand side like I've showed you. It's easy peasy. Now, one thing about this panel is it doesn't, you know, you're not recording into the panel, okay? So definitely the Ninja 5 has that all over this panel, but it's not intended to record. It's just intended to be a really good monitor for viewing that you can hand to a client if they're in the studio with you. And like I said, I don't have that situation, so I don't have to worry about it. But shooting in cars, you know, using the wireless setup, using this setup here, you know, depending on what I'm doing with my desk over there, if I need a panel that I can mount up close and I can touch the buttons and switch between two different camera views, this panel does that with ease. And you could even go between 3 or 4 different camera views if you put a switcher in between your camera and this panel. I haven't tested that yet, but I was kind of thinking about that. You know, I was thinking, because I've got an overhead camera here, I've got the side view over here, I've got this one here, so I can only do 2 at a time, but I could do 3 if I use a switcher. So that's probably something I'll test in the not too distant future, because you can get switchers are like, you know, 15 bucks, not even. So again, another use case that is worth looking into, guys. So as luck would have it, in the mailbox yesterday was the MT-VIKI bidirectional HDMI 2.0 switcher. So I've got 2 cameras going into the switcher, and what that allows me to do is, you know, the 1K is going into one input. I can hit the button and I can switch my inputs. So if that's a functionality that you need, I'll get some benefit out of this, because it just adds, you know, one input that I can run into this thing. So yeah, so I thought I would test that out for you, and I'll put a link to the description for you for the switcher. I mean, it's a whopping $12.95, just gives you a little bit more functionality that you can take advantage of. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. What's that saying that people like to use? It's a no-brainer. With all of the functionality and features built into this at the price point, I think this is a phenomenal piece of equipment. I think it's something that you would have to use a little bit of care with out in the field, like if you're going to be bouncing it around, because it doesn't have a cage on it. You might want to use something like a Condor Blue director's monitor, a set of handles or something like that. I just used a handle on the bottom, as you saw out in the field there, and that seemed to work just fine. But all in all, I mean, you know, the customizable buttons, the intuitive menu, HDMI in, loops out, SDI ports, dual battery, built-in power port, you know, for your transmitter. You know, what a phenomenal piece of kit. Like I said before, I wish I had the thing 3 years ago. It's just a feature-rich piece of equipment that's, for me, it's a game changer, no question about it. So I can highly recommend this thing to you if you're looking for something like this. Certainly it's going to be my primary monitor here in the studio going forward. So thanks again for watching. If you found value in the video, hit the subscribe, like, and notification button for me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Take care now.